I got to tell you, it's an absolute realization of a life's dream to be standing on this stage. I'm out of breath. In front of you guys. 4 years ago, when I first, Wim Hof. 4 years ago, when I met Grant Cardone for the first time, he invited me to the Growth Con, the big Growth Con at Marlin Stadium. And I remember looking at that stage and saying, a few years from now, I'll be standing on that stage. And here I am. So my intention today is to provide tremendous value to everyone in this room. And for those of you that don't know me, my name's Gary Brecka. I'm a human biologist and a researcher. And I spent 20 years of my life as a mortality expert in the insurance industry. And as a mortality expert, this meant that if I got 5 years of medical records on you and 5 years of demographic data, I could tell the insurance company how long you had to live to the month. And it didn't matter if you were 80 years old and had a terminal illness, or if you were 25 years old and you were perfectly healthy. I could tell the insurance company exactly how many more months you had left on this earth. And we became so accurate at predicting this that when I retired from that industry, I was one of only 5 certified expert witnesses in federal court for litigation related to that space, because the team that I was on was so accurate at predicting death. The only challenge about being in that industry was that I was prohibited by law from having any contact with the patient. I was prohibited by law from having any contact with the treating physician. All I could do was read the medical records, look at the demographic data, and tell the insurance company how many more months this person had left on earth. And as I began to get deeper into my career and realize that there were human beings on the other side of those spreadsheets, and it wasn't just data, I made a conscious decision to leave and touch the face of humanity by doing what I'm doing right now. So, thank you. So you may notice that I have a lot of energy. I have an endless amount of energy for this, and I want to spend the rest of the time today really providing value to you guys. These predictions that we used to do were so accurate, right directly to the month. A lot of people ask me, Gary, how did you do that? How could you take somebody who was 28 years old and perfectly healthy, a male or female, with good blood work and a decent genetic test, and tell how long they had left on earth? Well, you have to realize that we had to find a starting point for this. And the starting point was where we all leave, where we all exit. You see, every human being in this room will leave this earth the same way. We all die of the same thing. The definition of death is hypoxia, lack of oxygen to the brain. Although we used to think of it as an event, a stroke, a gunshot wound, a heart attack, a bus. But we know now that we can look at 5 genetic markers on everyone in this room and certain blood markers, and we can see exactly how well you're managing oxygen in your blood. And based on that, we can predict not only the onset of disease, but the severity of the disease and how quickly you will succumb to it. Either you are managing oxygen well in your body right this moment, or you are managing oxygen poorly. If you're managing oxygen poorly, you're not only having a shorter lifespan, you're having a shorter health span. You see, we began to realize in the study of mortality, as we had access to a database of 370 million lives, that it was not pathology and disease that was affecting humanity. Most pathology and disease, as you know it today, does not exist. And I'm going to prove it in a few moments by taking from this crowd a request for any ailment that you or someone you love suffers from, and I will tell you exactly what raw material is missing in the human body right here on this stage, and how to fix it by putting that raw material back into that person's body. You see, we've lost faith in humanity and mankind. We believe that people that have ADHD are deficient in Adderall. People that have high blood pressure are deficient in a beta blocker or a calcium blocker. Or someone that has high cholesterol is deficient in a statin, and none of that is true. If we would spend our time looking for the missing raw material in a person's body, you would find out that pathology and disease tends to eviscerate. The most powerful weapon to treat human beings and cure pathology and disease is this right here. The frequency that this sends, right? The power that this has over 32 trillion cells in your body. So if you're suffering from something right now, I want to give you some good news. I want you to take out a pen. I want you to write this date down. This is the most important date in the life of every single person in this room. This is the most important date in your life. And it's June 17th of this year. Because on June 17th this year, of the 32 trillion cells that are in your body right now, every day that you are alive, including today, and in the next 24-hour period, your body will turn over 300 billion new cells. You woke up this morning, and tomorrow, 300 billion cells that you woke up with this morning will not be in your body tomorrow, which means in 84 days, not a single living cell in your body will be with you, which means you will be a completely different human being on June 17th. So the question is, what frequency are we going to send these cells? What nutrition are we going to provide them? What information are you going to get, hopefully today, to impact how those 300 billion cells tomorrow are going to turn out, and the 300 billion the day after that, and the day after that? All right, let's do it. So, you know, I commonly say, and if you've seen me speak before, you've heard me say this, but I commonly say that after 22 years in the research space and as a human biologist, that if I was to boil my entire career down to one sentence, just a single sentence, I believe that this sentence is the most impactful sentence that you will hear for the balance of your lifetime on how this sentence will impact how long you have to live, how many healthy years you have left on this earth, how well you will sleep, how strong your libido will be, how strong your response to exercise, whether or not you will have clean waking energy, or whether or not you will have good cognitive function. Does anyone want to know what that sentence is? No, thank you. It's $1,500 now. It is this. The presence of oxygen is the absence of disease. The presence of oxygen is the absence of disease. And while that may sound like a very simple sentence, there is not a single disease etiological pathway known to mankind that does not have its roots in blood oxygen. I'm going to prove that today. Not one form of cancer known to mankind does not begin in a hypoxic environment, an oxygen-deprived environment. Diabetes begins in an oxygen-deprived environment. Colon cancer begins in an oxygen-deprived environment. Brain fog is oxygen deprivation in the brain. Poor sleep is lack of oxygen in delta wave that doesn't allow you to reach a complete delta wave of sleep. So what I plan to do today is teach you how to manage oxygen, not just by breathing better, but by getting markers checked in your blood so that you have a roadmap for optimal health. So that you have an absolute roadmap for optimal health. And I have a promise, a big, bold promise from this stage. Because for 22 years, I was one of the most accurate mortality predictors in the country. So my promise to you today is that if you do what I ask you to do today, that we will add 7 years to the life of everyone in this room. Okay? You ready for that? Woo! This is getting interesting. I like this. So that's my promise. I want to add 7 years, not just 7 years to your lifespan. I want to add 7 years to your health span. Because, you know, when I first met Grant Cardone, if you've ever heard this story, you know, it was right before GrowthCon in 2018, and I didn't actually really know who Grant Cardone was. A very good friend of his convinced him to get this test done, a test that I'm going to suggest everybody in this room do today. And the only reason why Grant did it was because he said, if you do this test, I'll pay for it and I'll invest in your real estate fund. So Grant said, okay, what the heck, I'll just do it. So he got the test done and he calls my office when the results come back, and the front desk patches them back to me, and he says, hey Gary, this is Grant Cardone. I said, hey Mr. Cardone, how you doing? He said, listen man, and these are his exact words, so I'm not managing my profanity for the next minute. But he said, listen man, I don't even know what you do for a living. But before you start, I should just tell you, I got doctors hanging on trees and I got personal trainers coming out of my ass. I got about 8 minutes, man. Give me your spiel. I was like, oh, well, that was rude. But all right. I said, well, Grant, let me start by you telling me how you feel. And he goes, Gary, I feel great. I'm running around the world. I'm building my empire. I feel great. I said, well, do you mind if I tell you what I see in your labs? And he said, no, go ahead. I said, well, I see a man that goes to bed exhausted. but his mind keeps him up until the wee hours of the morning. So that by the time you wake up in the morning, you're more exhausted than when you went to bed.